Tall and Small Collection, Season 2, Chapter 40, Field Trips and Feelings. Ashlynn was giddy all over, but there was no way she wanted to ruin the surprise just yet. She wanted to get everyone's opinion, and it would have to be a family decision. Still, her excitement was bubbling over, and she couldn't stop smiling. Knowing what needed to be done, she closed her laptop after forwarding the email to her phone and glanced around the room. She knew Dorian was in his studio. Ray was perfecting one of his gadgets and looking into different applications on his iPod that had something to do with 3D printing, and Soren was fitting Maisie with a brand new harness so she could start practicing climbing. She was already proving to be a resourceful climber, able to scale part of the couch by simply grabbing onto the exposed fibers on the cushions. Ashlynn, unable to control herself, cleared her throat and glanced down at Soren, who was still wrestling a squirming Maisie. "Hey, Soren, how do you feel about a little field trip today? The whole family?" asked Ashlynn, hoping she could easily convince the eldest borrower brother. One look, and she knew she was going to need a bit more to persuade the eldest brother. It was in his hazel eyes that he had other things to do today. Field trip? To where?" Soren asked, as he marked a cutting line on the ribbon he was using to make Maisie's harness. "Someplace new," said Ashlynn. Soren's disbelieving glance prompted Ashlynn to continue. "It is somewhere neither of us have been before. It is private, so we don't have to worry about being out in the open. Please, I don't think you'll be disappointed, and this is really important." Soren sighed, brushing back his hair as he made the final mark on the ribbon around his daughter, and looked up into Ashlynn's blue-gray eyes. Entranced by those eyes, he sighed heavily and nodded. "Very well, I yield. Should I break the news to the boys that their plans for the day have changed, or will you?" asked Soren. "I will, and I promise you won't be sorry," grinned Ashlynn. She stepped carefully over Maisie and Soren and went to the back closet room where she could hear Dorian singing. She paused for just a moment and listened, holding her breath so she didn't interrupt the aspiring musician. Saying little things can make a big difference. If what you're saying was meant to be for us, every little single word can't be anything but heard. Maybe it will make no sound, but that's not what it's about. Tell me now what's on your mind. Might sound silly, but I'd like to write you a little rhyme. Look around and tell me how. Do you need to be big to be proud? Do you need to be loud to make a sound?" At this, the music paused, and Ashlynn heard Dorian grumbling something about needing to add a bass or something for depth. Now was as good of a time as any to interrupt. "Dorian?" called Ashlynn, as she gently tapped on the edge of the closet door. She heard some scuffling inside before Dorian poked his head out of his shoebox studio. "Yes?" asked Dorian. Sorry, were you calling for me?" "No, I wasn't calling. I just wanted to say we are taking a family trip. I think you're going to like it," said Ashlynn. Dorian sighed and ruffled his hair, which was starting to get a little unruly in length, and nodded. "That sounds like fun, actually. I'm getting stumped by some lyrics and need to take a step away for a minute," said Dorian as he folded his arms across his chest. He looked like some kind of famous director, leaning against the edge of the box with some distant look of a vision he wanted the song to embody in his eyes. "Anyway, let me grab a pad and pencil, and I'll be out in the main room in a minute." "Sure thing, but I'm coming for you in 10 if I don't see you," teased Ashlynn, as Dorian nodded and dipped back into his domain. Ray was a little harder to convince, considering he wanted to keep inventing on his latest project. However, Ashlynn said he could take his device with him to work in the car. Appeased, the whole crew slipped into Ashlynn's purse into a spot Ray had actually created to be breathable, partially see-through, and completely protected from crushing and accidental bumps. Locked and loaded, Ashlynn walked as evenly as she could out of her apartment, locking it behind her, and then headed for her car. It took everything in her willpower to not skip every other step, her excitement starting to get to her. Inside the bag, the borrower brothers speculated on where they were going. Ashlynn isn't really the overly secret type, but I get the feeling she's hiding something for a specific reason, said Ray, as he stretched out and looked over his shoulder at the passing scenery. It's probably some kind of park. Remember the one back at home? Dorian asked, just as Ray shuddered. Yeah, who could forget that place with all those spiders? Said Ray, as he remembered one of those times when he went to the park and ventured into a tube where he got caught in some spider webs. I swear, that place was collecting them. This got a chuckle from Dorian and Soren. Well, wherever we're going, I'm sure she has a good reason, said Soren. She wanted all of us to come too. I don't think she suspects that we're in any danger from the community, so that's not the reason for her bringing all of us. I don't have any other feeling than what my gut is telling me. Well, whatever it is, I'm excited. It's been way too long since we've been out and about with her. Plus, she said it was reserved, so we don't have to be worried about being seen, grinned Ray. The boys' conversation continued until they reached the car, where they were free to slip out of the bag and watch the cars go by. Ray, as usual, took his position on Ashlynn's shoulder so he could get a good view of the outside world, completely forgetting about working on his invention, while Dorian continued to scribble in his notebook. Soren made sure Maisie didn't wander off of the edge of the car seat, which was a task all on its own. It was only 20 or so minutes away, but the whole way Ray tried to guess where they were going. Are we going to the ocean? Is it by a river? Are there big trees there? Are there any poles for climbing? Most of the time, Ashlynn's answer was no. There were a few times, however, when she said yes. It was practically eating her alive to not blurt out where they were going, but she wanted to see their reaction. One street after the next, she finally turned down one particular road and slowed the car to a crawl before slipping it into park, turning off the engine. The moment she saw it, Ashlynn felt her chest tighten. This was going to be a big decision, and one they needed to make as a family. Wait, what? Ashlynn, where are we? Asked Dorian as he peered over the ledge of the car door and stared out the window. Yeah, where is this? Ray chimed in, leaning over almost to the point of falling off of Ashlynn's shoulder. Soren, climbing the edge of the bag to put Maisie in, glimpsed the outside as well. What the boys saw outside of the window was a row of houses that stretched far to the end of the street. There was distance between the houses, each one separated by hedges and trees. The one they were parked in front of was white, with blue shutters. There were several large windows in the front, but they looked tinted so passers-by couldn't see inside. The front yard was immense. It would take them probably the better part of a day to walk across. Set back a fair distance, this house was, in a word, charming. There was something about it that, for some reason, felt familiar. Well, what do you think? Ashlynn asked. Her hands were shaking ever so slightly. Did the boys notice the excited tremble in her voice? It looks nice, stated Ray. but it's a tad hard to see from here. You're quite right. Come on, let's go take a better look, said Ashlynn. With that, the boys loaded themselves into the bag once more, just as a precaution, and Ashlynn slipped out of the car. She walked up to the house, feeling her hands shaking still, as she typed in the code and let herself in with the key. She made sure to lock the door behind her and glanced around instinctually for recording devices. Not seeing any in the barren entrance, she set the bag onto the ground. Okay, we're here, she said softly. She watched the boys emerge with a look of confusion and fascination as they climbed out. Ray, without hesitation, darted a few dozen steps forward into the main living area, which was off to the left. At the far back corner they could glimpse the kitchen and a few other doors. To the right there was a large study and a library with doors leading to some carpeted place. There were stairs going up off of the side of the living area, but everyone was in awe of the space and paid the stairs no mind at the moment. Ashlynn, practically bursting, watched the confusion turn to curiosity. Ashlynn, what is this place? Dorian asked. Well, she said, taking a breath to calm her pounding heart. That's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. This place, it could be our new home. All eyes turned toward Ashlynn. What? Ray asked. He looked around the rooms, and his eyes brightened. Yeah, said Ashlynn bashfully. Of course, it isn't official at the moment, because I wanted to talk to you guys about it. But I have been looking for a while and saw this house come up on the market. It's in a good neighborhood, it's a good price, and it could be ours. If you wanted it to be. Soren was absolutely speechless, shocked into a stunned silence. Maisie seized the opportunity and darted away from him, charging into the center of the living room with wild abandon, giggling in anticipation of Soren chasing after her. This house? Our home? Asked Soren as he took in the scene with a new perspective. He could see elements of it. He looked to the baseboards and saw that they could easily lead into the walls. He glanced around the wood trim and saw a perfect ledge for them to attach hooks so they could climb up to the windows. He could see the tables and chairs from Ashlynn's apartment in the main area, and the bookshelves filled with Ray's inventions. The house seemed to swirl around him, and he found himself spinning slightly as he stared at the vast rooms on either side of him. It was an odd sensation, but Soren could see it. He could see their lives together here, in this place. Well, what do you think? Asked Ashlynn as she held her breath, watching the brothers' reaction. Dorian was the first to erupt with his answer. Are you kidding? This is awesome. Dorian stepped into one of the main rooms toward the shelves and started muttering about where to put different pieces of recording equipment. He was already seeing a studio and a place for him to write and record his music. You mean we'll be moving away? Asked Ray quietly. It looked like something just hit him and was making him feel a conflicted mixture of excitement and realization. I mean, yes. There are a bunch of things I need to do in the meantime, but if this is something that you all are interested in, then we can make it happen, stated Ashlynn, feeling slightly worried that this surprise was going south quickly. As a partial distraction, she reached over and coaxed Maisie back toward the brothers, making the little girl squeal with delight. Feeling the pressure, Ashlynn started feeling defeated and tried to redirect the conversation. I don't want you all to feel pressured or anything. I just saw it and thought it would be a fun trip to go and see. We don't have to stay unless you want to see the rest of the house, said Ashlynn, when Soren interrupted. It's perfect, he said softly. Ashlynn looked to the eldest borrower brother, heart swelling with a rush of excitement, and caught his hazel eyes. Soren continued as he met Ashlynn's gaze. The shelves will be great for workspaces. The windows are covered so no one can see us. The baseboards are the perfect height for doors into the walls. I can see it all. Our life here. I love it. Ashlynn couldn't contain herself. She carefully leaned down and kissed the top of Soren's head. It was just a peck, but it was enough for both of them to feel giddy all over. I'm so glad. Do you want to see the rest? Asked Ashlynn, pointing to the rest of the house. Yeah, absolutely, grinned Dorian, turning back and heading toward the group. Ray, hesitating slightly, nodded and joined the family as they secured themselves on Ashlynn's shoulders, Soren and Maisie electing to be held because Maisie's harness wasn't quite finished yet. From there, Ashlynn walked through all of the rooms, explaining what she thought would go there. In the main living room, she talked about securing different lines and that they could hide in case other humans came over. Ashlynn talked about exploring the walls and seeing what could be done on the inside. She talked about creating hidden panels to have supplies and easy access to the walls. Oh, and you are going to like this, said Ashlynn, as she turned from the kitchen and descended a set of stairs into the basement. Immediately, they saw that the basement led to a backyard and several large bedrooms down in the basement. There's a couple of bedrooms down here, but I thought one of these could be a music studio or an invention lab. We have a spare bedroom. The master bedroom is on the main floor, and this whole area down here can be another living area to watch movies and set up games and stuff. The boys were in complete awe. Then Ashlynn went back up the stairs and then up the second set of stairs to an attic-like area with low windows. This place was probably meant to be a child's playroom, but the space alone would have been enough for a studio or creative office space. Seeing this place, Ray seemed to perk up a little. His wheels were turning as he looked out across the room. Ashlynn crouched down to let everyone explore the space, but tapped Ray on the shoulder before he got too far away. Hey, is everything okay? She asked quietly, as Soren chased Maisie across the floor toward the windows while Dorian walked over toward the walls to check out the baseboards. Ray nodded, feeling a bit singled out momentarily, but he knew there were some things on his mind. Ashlynn, seeing the youngest brother's reaction, nodded and gestured over to the corner so that they could talk. He stepped onto her palm, drawing his legs up to his chest, and collected his thoughts as Ashlynn walked over to the side, pretending to show Ray the crawl space. Hey, what's up? Are you okay? Asked Ashlynn, keeping her voice low so Soren and Dorian couldn't pick up on her questioning. Ray's heart fluttered and flipped in his chest. He suspected he knew the reason why he was feeling conflicted, but he wasn't entirely sure. Yeah, I'm okay. It's just... Ray took a breath and sighed deeply. I am just thinking about Hero and Theo. Just friends I've made back at the old place. It just hit me that if we move, I probably won't ever see them again. Ashlynn understood in an instant how Ray felt, and carefully reached up and rubbed his back with her index finger. I'm sorry, Ray. I didn't know, apologized Ashlynn, as she felt Ray lean into her touch. It's not your fault, and don't get me wrong, I think this place is amazing. I just... I think this would be awesome to be here. I like it a lot, but I know I'll miss my friends too. It's just change, sighed Ray, at which point he chuckled slightly to himself. You'd think that I'd be used to a change by now. Ray, we don't have to move if you don't want to, said Ashlynn reassuringly. Or if you want to look at a different place, we can do that too. I thought this would be a fun surprise, but if you're not ready to move, I don't want you to feel pressured into it. No, I know, said Ray, smiling up at Ashlynn, his pale blue eyes filling again with excitement. And I do like this place. I like it a lot. I can see a whole inventing studio downstairs, and that's really exciting. It was just a surprise, that's all, and it is a good surprise. Hey, you too. Did you hear me? Called Dorian, making both Ashlynn and Ray startle slightly. No. What's up? Asked Ashlynn, as she peered around and set her hand on the ground for Ray. This house. Other borrowers used to live here. What? Asked Ray. He slipped off of Ashlynn's palm and ran over to where the borrower brothers had gathered by the baseboard trim. Soren nodded as he peered inside of the walls. Sure enough, said Soren. There are lights in here. They're horribly dusty and probably don't work, but they're here. And there are studs here, too, with secured nails. Somebody probably lived here for a while before moving out. Ray glanced back at Ashlynn and smiled. I'll take this as a good sign, then, he said, beaming. I certainly think so, agreed Ashlynn. Well, I don't want to pressure an answer or anything, but how do you all feel about the house? Do you like it? Is it a good move? Dorian nodded, almost with no hesitation, while Soren took a moment before nodding. Ray, being the last, hesitated for just a moment longer, before looking back down the passage and nodding. Yes. I like this place, said Ray. He still felt a pang about leaving behind the friends he made, but the thought of disregarding a whole new adventure was equally as difficult. Ashlynn sensed Ray's hesitation. Well, like I said, we don't have to make a decision right now, and there are a lot of steps to go through to get everything in place. But if you're all feeling good, I can start that process. A friend of mine is the one in charge of the house sale, so I can get the ball rolling on that, said Ashlynn. Mixed feelings swelled in the air, but there was an unanimous feeling of optimism. This place, this house, could be their home. Things were going to be different, but at least they were going to be together, and that was what mattered. Without their hip lamps and some of their other supplies, they decided to venture into the walls next time. For now, they decided to venture into the main rooms and explore different areas to see where would be the best place to put different things like workshops, studios, and designated work areas. A few hours passed before they decided they needed to leave, but the longer they stayed, the more reassured they felt about this house. It was an odd feeling, but it felt like a home they could stay in for the rest of their lives. Piling back in the car, the family discussed plans moving forward. The day was a good one, and the days following seemed promising and busy. A lot needed to be done to get them prepared to move and start in a new house. The van pulled up outside of the apartment complex, the engine rumbling like sour thunder, an omen of foreboding. When the engine turned off, the sensation of tenseness continued to loom in the air around it. Tinted windows and big, bold letters reading pest control and extermination was on the side. A young man emerged from the van, appearing to be around his late teens or early 20s. His eyes, calculating and eager, stared at the apartment complex in front of him. A smile curled his lips as he gazed up at the building, the light of the setting sun catching an orange glow against the windows. "Oh, yeah," grinned the young man. "Lily was right. This would be the perfect place." The young man turned on his heel and ducked back inside the car, twisting around to glance in the back at all of his supplies. Cages, traps, tethers, smoke-out gas, spray. Patience. He needed to set up a few things before approaching the building officially. As he glanced back, he eyed two of the cages right in the middle of the shelf. Those had been secured beyond escape, and, to him, for good reason. "Are you ready to do your part?" he said. He heard a slight shuffle and knew his words were heard. Patience. Time. He had waited for an opportunity like this, and now it was right at his fingertips. This was going to be a good day.